And we're back with more exciting adventures of the Incredible Oaks. I am Chris.
I am Mark.
We needed to have the CSI Miami. Wow! Dun, dun.
So I thought you were doing Robert Stack from Airplane.
Oh, we just keep taking the last
Yeah.
that would be better. That'd be even funnier.
I thought that's fine.
So I think we're off a week, just because life. But this happens.
It's 2020, folks. Life keeps doing its thing.
Well, the day of this taping, Eddie Van Halen died on the day of this taping of this show.
Yeah, I just found out a few minutes ago.
He didn't realize he didn't work all day, and I told him, he was like, "Oh,
yeah, that hurts. That hurts."
You're a bigger fan than you were probably. If that thing to say closer to the whole Van Halen thing, I liked them, but it wasn't they weren't a pinnacle for me.
Well, I'm a big fan of Van Halen. Yeah, absolutely.
I think Neil Schon, you've always said, is your favorite guitarist. Is that still true?
Oh yeah, that's true.
But Eddie Van Halen is like a top 5 for you, I'm sure, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, he's one of the greats ever. Yeah.
Yeah. Which version of Van Halen you like best? Van Hagar, Van Halen, or the Van?
The original.
Or Van? What was that?
The first 6 albums with David Lee Roth is their glory period.
But then David Lee Roth came back towards the end, right?
And then he came back. He's been with them for the last 13 years.
Been that long? I showed you how out of touch I am.
Had many successful tours.
Yeah.
Including a comeback album that did really well. It was a good, solid record. So it was kind of a back to basics record for him.
It was Van Halen. It was Sammy. I can't talk. It was David Lee Roth, Sammy Hagar, and then the guy from More Than Words. The show, for one album, right?
Yeah, that was in '98.
What was his name?
Gary Sharon of Extreme.
Extreme. So it's Van. I guess it was Van Extreme for one album.
Van Sharon.
And then it went back to Van Halen with David Lee Roth, or was there another thing in there?
Actually, went back to Van Hagar.
Did it?
Briefly, and then back to.
Well, wasn't there a time where they had both, and didn't they tour all together once with Hagar and Roth?
No. That was actually Sammy Hagar and David Lee Roth together going on tour.
But that was Van Halen.
No. It was 2 solo artists touring together.
This is like the Marvel universe.
So it's like it was like
a lot to keep up with.
It was probably billed as the voices of Van Halen or something like that, but it wasn't Van Halen.
Well, I was going to say we made this a Van Halen show, but that's really all I got to say about it. I mean, it sucks they died. It sucks.
Well, he'd been fighting cancer for years. Had it went into remission for a good spell.
Yeah.
And then obviously I think it reared its ugly head around. I want to say around 2013. It came back pretty aggressively. So I think they had their last tour, by my memory, was 2015. So for those of you that saw that tour, that was it. I don't know that they meant it to be, but it was the farewell tour for the original band.
Well, segueing into our chosen topic of the episode.
Yeah.
Speaking of farewell tours, seems like it's farewell for the Cowboys in our 1-3 or 1-4. 1-3.
They are currently 1-3.
1-3. So they're at the 1-3 mark. They throw it all over the field with reckless abandon, and that's gotten them one come from behind loss against a team that's just as probably poor at all this as they are.
Well, a team that's going the wrong way as well. Yeah.
So, what are your thoughts on the boys?
Cowboys, yes. NFL talk. I have some things to say about the Titans too, but we'll
start with the boys though.
But the Cowboys.
That sound ominous about the Titans. I got ominous words for them.
This. Let me start here. I'm disappointed in Coach Mike McCarthy. I expected this team to show improvements in areas, not us see the same team and the same weaknesses we had with Jason Garrett just continue. There's been like no interruption, no improvements. Just that same team just kept rolling, and now it looks like a defense. The players on the defense are not responding to any kind of they're not being up coached. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And I've heard a lot of talk about Mike Nolan is our defensive coordinator, and his defensive schemes are very exotic. Well, to throw that out, you don't have players that can handle exotic. You need to get back to basics or something. But I've been saying it for years. They didn't have a good defense. So none of this really surprises me, to be honest with you. I've been waiting for, like, the chickens come home to roost. This is kind of it. It's like, I've been telling you, Jerry, for years, the idea of I want a really high scoring offense, but I won't worry about the defense. Like, yeah, good luck with that, because eventually that's going to catch up to you. Now you get $190 million they spend on a salary cap. $140 million of it goes to offense.
Is it really that?
It's high.
That lopsided.
It is. It's. I'm not really exaggerating by much. It's. So you're spending on defense probably anywhere from maybe 50 to 60 million on your defense, and you wonder why you suck and you can't compete.
Well, do it.
So, well, I want to sell jerseys. Yeah, well, when you go 1-16 or 1-15, whatever it is,
right?
Good luck selling jerseys. It's just people respond to wins, victories. So that's I'd like to be more up about it, but I'm disappointed in the coach. Terrible defense. I told you so, Jerry. And let's say decide to pull a big trade and get us some defensive players.
Yeah.
It's going to be a rough season.
It feels like a non-sustainable formula. People watching this and listening to me are going to just totally roll their eyes at me. It reminds me of, like, on Madden, and when you just like, man, I'm just going to max out the offense.
Yeah.
And you're playing like on franchise mode on Madden. And when franchise mode on Madden, you have to deal with the salary cap and stuff. You turn those features off, but usually you leave that on. It's kind of part of the fun is trying to manipulate your salary cap. But what happens is your defense won't be any good. That's a given because you overloaded your offense. And you'll like make these outlandish trades and stuff on Madden to get your offense jacked up and everything else. And then what will happen is all these players, the checks start coming due on these new salaries for these players. Well, now you can't afford them so you have to now you start to have to hack away at your own offense you built, or you get cap penalties that are outrageous. So you have all this dead money and stuff.
Right.
So it's kind of like your own plan is your own destruction.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I'm hearing from you. The Cowboys' own plan is their own destruction.
Yeah, it's not a
sustainable formula.
It's not sustainable. It's not a winning formula because they think it is. This is a franchise. Let me rephrase. Jerry Jones, the owner, I think saw the early 2000s Colts and what Peyton Manning and the Colts were doing.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, absolutely fell in love with that formula. And he has been trying to duplicate it ever since. Romo, bless his heart, was counted on to carry us to victory, even though we had no defense to speak of.
Right.
And so people were so down on Romo. Oh, why did he throw that interception? Because the man knows the whole franchise. He knows that owner is like throwing all this up on him, and he's trying to deliver.
Right.
And I really wish he would have put his foot down in like 2012 or 11 and said, "Look, I'm talented, but I can't play both sides of the ball."
Yeah.
I appreciate what you're being Romo friendly, but we got to be able to stop some people.
Right.
And hold a lead. So yes, that's what I'm saying. That formula just doesn't work.
The Romo era, there was a game against, I think, Manning's Broncos. And that was that year that Manning set the touchdown record, I think. And I think the game was 52-49.
Yeah, it was an insane game.
It was an insane game.
Yeah.
And I remember the fans after that game were putting it on Romo. And if I remember correctly, you and I both were aghast. We're he puts 49 on the board, and you're saying it's the quarterback's fault?
Right.
He put 49 points on the board, and they couldn't win.
Yeah.
That's Romo's fault?
Exactly.
He put 49.
Exactly.
That's 7 touchdowns.
Yeah. That guy tried his ass off to win that game by putting 49 points, and the defense still couldn't hold.
Yeah.
So, but that became a Romo problem. Like, no.
Well, I remember one of our cousins even said, well, there was a drive there at the end where he didn't convert to third down. I'm like, he put 49 on the board. There's all kinds of third downs he could have missed if you had a good defense. Are you kidding me with this?
Well, I had the satisfaction of knowing that we actually talked about that back in when that game happened and said the same thing, put up 49 points.
You should win the game.
You should win a game. And that's a defensive problem, not a Romo problem.
Well, I don't understand. I'm not a Cowboy loyalist. I'm a very passive Cowboys fan. If the game's on, I watch it. Honestly, even with all the slinging around, I think they're boring. Something about the Cowboys are very boring to me. And I don't know why. I felt this way for quite a while. I don't feel there's any identity and stuff. And you've got Ezekiel Elliott even when I watch the games, I know Dak's getting all his yardage and stuff, but watching the games, I'm like, every time Ezekiel, I know he had that fumble, but other than that fumble aside, like Zeke does something with the ball like every time, almost. Why are we not pounding the shit out of it with Ezekiel Elliott 30 times a game?
Right. Yeah. I've said similar stuff too. It's like we need to be, feeding that man. And I understand this year we've gotten down by like 2 touchdowns but they forget the Atlanta game. They calmed down and started feeding him in the second quarter and a lot of the third quarter. And that is what helped us get back into the ball game.
Yeah.
So, but they haven't done that the last 2 games for sure.
There was a really big wild comeback when Aikman and Emmett were there against the Skins, and it went to overtime.
Yeah.
And the Cowboys won it. I think they won it off a big pass play to
it was the first play to
a Rocket.
Wasn't it? It was Rocket Ishmael. It sure was.
But the way they got back in that game was they started feeding Emmett in the second half, if I remember correctly. Yeah,
they started they went back to what they're good at. Yeah,
and that's kind of like where I'm going with this. Is like it's a recurring theme of if you stick to what you can do best, success can happen. Even putting up a lot of points.
Sure.
I mean, Jeff Fisher said in a podcast this past year, he says, my biggest regret was we thought we could come in that Super Bowl against the Rams and trick them instead of running. We thought we could throw it. He said, but the second half, we had to go back to basics and run the ball. We ran all over them. He said, if we'd have done that from the get-go, we'd have won that game.
Yeah, they would have.
But he overthought it and thought they could do the old switcheroo, and it just didn't work. And
outthought himself, yeah.
He just didn't. I've said it a million times. I need to patent it. The rule of normalcy: do what you're good at within, play within yourself, and you can have success. That goes for life. That goes for sports. That goes for business. One of the biggest lies that we've been fed as society is the old get out of your comfort zone. That's complete bullshit. My philosophy is stay in your comfort zone and do it so well you have great success within your comfort zone.
Right.
I mean, I've used the analogy before. Bill Gates was a big giant computer nerd. He didn't become a billionaire because he's like, well, I'll go to a comfort zone. I'll sell tomatoes for a living. No, he stayed in his comfort zone. He stayed in his lane, and he just kicked ass at it, and he's a billionaire. So it's a lie that we've been fed about getting out of your comfort zone and finding success. Stay in your lane and just get really flipping good at it.
Yeah. I know in the 80s there was a popular phrase. You don't hear
it. Still now. Well,
you don't hear it anymore, but back in the 80s,
you do hear it now.
Always play to your strengths is what you would hear in the 80s.
Well, I know it's being a business owner, and you get all these networking situations with chamber meets and all these networking opportunities.
Okay.
You get a lot of these business tip type things thrown at you.
Okay.
So it's a little bit different. It's not in like a normal, like common everyday vernacular, but in the world of networking and business stuff, that's a common thing gets thrown at you. I always hear it all the time. Learn to multitask better and to go outside your comfort zone. Those are the two biggest lies there are. Do one thing at a time and check the boxes and get them off your list.
Yep.
Because otherwise you won't get anything done. And two, stay in your comfort zone and just get really flipping good at it. So taking that back to sports.
Okay.
The Cowboys should run the ever-loving shit out of Elliott 34 times. He's only good till he's 30. What is he now? How old is he now? Like 26, 27?
What is he now? Well, I would think he's 26.
You probably only got 2 to 3 good. You only probably got 2 to 3 good, valuable years out of him anyway. Use him up.
Well, I don't disagree. I've been watching with frustration. I thought Garrett last year I marveled at the fact that the man knew he was in a make or break season, and he just kept wanting to like show how smart he was by going through the air. And like, that's your Marshall Faulk. Run him to
death.
To death. That's what he's there for. He actually tattooed "feed me" on his belly.
Yeah.
He's asking. He doesn't. There is no tomorrow for Zeke.
Running backs are only good till 30 as the common rule.
Sure.
There are exceptions. There's exceptions to anything.
Sure.
But as a common rule, running backs are only good to 30. So you run them to death until they get 30, and then when they're done, you move on to the next one. That's why running backs want to get paid when they're actually good. And that's why you go ahead and pay them when they're actually good.
Right.
So you only got a short window. Go ahead and pay them.
Yeah.
They know the deal. Everybody knows the deal. So you've got a good one. You go, Zeke has the talents to be as good as anybody. So run that son of a gun 40 times a game. Make it shorten the game for that defense.
Right.
And you might win a game or two. I'm not a genius, but it's a pretty proven formula.
Yeah.
It's worked before many times.
Well, there is about 4 weeks to the trade deadline.
There's nobody to go get.
There's the Cowboys have, I would say, you could say they're kind of deep on offense. Mm-hmm. Let's put it that way. They're deep on offense. So there's some players I think they could offer up and get some decent trade negotiations going with a player like our backup running back, Pollard. He could be starting in a lot of places. He's really good. Yeah. And also Michael Gallup. I think either one of those two would be great trade options to get in a decent defensive tackle who can stop the run, and perhaps another linebacker just to help us strengthen that front seven. It helps stop the bleeding. That's what I would be looking to do if I was Jerry Jones. But,
it sounds like it's a scheme issue to some degree. If you remember right, Nolan, or if I remember right, rather, Nolan was the guy that had San Fran, and he had those like crazy good linebackers.
Yeah, Patrick Willis.
Yeah,
early on, didn't he?
Yeah. They had like four, like all four linebackers were studs.
Right.
And then, but they couldn't win. And then, what's his name?
Singletary?
No. The coach.
Harbaugh. Jim
Harbaugh shows up, and like year one they go to the Super Bowl. So it's kind of like the Rams thing with Fisher. Fisher built the team, and then that guy come in there, and boom, they went to a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of the same thing. That Nolan had the team built. Obviously, he wouldn't execute it very well.
Right.
And then Harbaugh comes in, and boom, they go to the Super Bowl. So there's probably, I bet you there's some scheme issues involved. I doubt it's all talent.
Yeah. Which is why I said, if it's exotic, throw that out. Simplify it for now. And then we can worry about exotic later.
Roll of normalcy. The roll of normalcy.
Well, what do you think? Titans time?
Yeah, I'm going to let you go first. I'm very curious to hear. I feel like you're going to put them on blast. So go ahead. Or maybe I should go first because I have no idea where you're going with this. I'll go first since I have no idea where you're going.
All right.
We had the COVID game. We got bit in the butt with a COVID bug. That led to the rescheduling of the Steelers game. There was talk of making it a Tuesday game, which would have been the 9th, the day we're taping this. That didn't happen because there were too many players got sick. And I don't think it's so much that the players got sick; it's the fact that the whole facility had to be shut down. I think if the facility hadn't been shut down, they probably would have played and had been like, "Well, tough luck to you. You got to play all these." They expanded the practice squads to 16 players for this reason.
Right.
So they could have been like, "Well, all these starters are sick, but you just got to play with what you got." And too bad, dude. But I think the fact that it's spread enough to shut the whole building down is why they went ahead and rescheduled it. That's my guess. I don't know for certain. I've got, in terms of how the Titans were performing on the field prior to COVID, I thought that our cornerbacks desperately need Adoree Jackson back. Obviously, we might have mentioned this on a different show, but I feel like I've said this before. But Adoree is obviously an MVP on that defense because he's out, and the pass defense, which was decent last year, is abysmal this year. So I think he's due for a contract. So obviously, we need to pay him because he's obviously more valuable than I ever thought. The pass rush by committee, which I think is something even you mentioned last time, is having marginal success. So I think the offense is fine. We need to feed Henry. We have similar issues with her.
Yeah.
They get a little cute with it. And it's like, no, just pound the crap out of Henry. He's only good for about 2 to 3 more years anyway. Right. Use him up.
Right.
I mean, who cares? Running backs are not going to play for 15 years.
No.
So you got a 5-year window. You should run the crap out of them for 5 years. And they kind of were getting cutesy with it. And then, like the Minnesota game, they started running Henry, and guess what? They come back and win the game. So we're winning, but we're winning ugly, but we are winning. There is a lot of room for improvement. I'm underwhelmed by the defense. I thought more of the defense, but the offense I'm fairly pleased with. So now go ahead and go ahead. I have no idea where you're going. Well, you had a devious smile, so go ahead.
Well, you're talking about the way they're playing is what you were speaking to, and their performance. Overall, I agree with what you just said. I think the secondary needs to pick it up, and our pass rush by committee, great if it works, but seems like it's been
mixed results.
It's been dropping off a bit. Get back to running Henry. Get back to your bread and butter. So overall, I agree with what you're saying. I am kind of frustrated with the media and this relationship with the Titans.
Okay.
Second week, I've been sitting on this it's been stuck in my crawl now for 3 weeks.
Now I think I might have a hint where you're going. Go ahead.
The second game of our season, we're playing Jacksonville Jaguars. You could not get anyone in the media, ESPN, NBC, anyone. Anytime they brought up the game, it was all Gardner Minshew.
That is true.
And like we won the game. Yeah. And every one of them that did the highlights, they'd be like, well, and there's Minshew, there's Jaguar, and here he is throwing a touchdown pass, and the Titans held the win. And okay, but now let's talk about Browns, Bengals, and you're like, that's all you're going to say about the Titans? We put up with that for years. But the indignity, and now you're going to do it for a guy who had like one decent half season, and we're like Minshew mania. Like, really?
Yeah. And they're another one. They're like 1-3.
And they're not winning. I'd like us not to be winning ugly, but I'll take the win as a win. But just the media's kind of just, okay, we've got the shiny penny, which is Gardner Minshew. Let's focus on him. Like, it's like he's not – I don't see that he's worthy of that kind of attention to ignore the fact that the Titans actually won that game, that you would be so dismissive. And anyway, that really bothered me. And then after all that, they're like, could the Titans – so for weeks, I've been like, come on, Titans, get some good press. Then we end up being the first team to have COVID. And I'm just like, are you kidding me? So I just feel like, as a Titans fan, I just totally, in the last week, my balls they drew back hard and just wrapped me as hard as they could. I just feel, I don't feel good. I don't feel good.
No, I hear you.
I'd like our team to, we had such a nice we were a nice story last year, and then this year we get ignored by the Jaguars.
Yeah.
And we get ignored for the Jaguars, rather.
Yeah.
And then we were the first team with COVID. So I just really feel like someone just took a bat and kind of hit me in the back of the head.
The Minshew thing, the NFL, remember Rush Limbaugh got in trouble because he said McNabb, like the media wanted to over celebrate McNabb. They wanted him to be successful, so they overbilled him, they overtalked him because they wanted him to be successful.
Yeah, there was a rooting interest.
There was a rooting, yeah. And if you look at his numbers, like I think Brad Johnson at the time was the quarterback that people were comparing to. Like Brad Johnson, who even won a Super Bowl with Tampa, like had better stats and everything else, but you never heard about Brad Johnson.
No.
But McNabb was the guy that got all the press, and like Johnson had better stats. So it's like, how come nobody talks about Johnson? He has the better stats. And then McNabb is who we want to put on Chunky Soup and all these commercials and stuff.
Right.
So the NFL, I think, taking Minshew with the mustache. He's got the porn stash. He's got a very colorful demeanor and attitude. They want him to be a star because let's be honest, they are lacking in stars right now. The Kaepernick stuff, the anthem stuff, all that stuff has hurt them. No matter what you feel about that, it's a fact that the brand has been diminished and there's not that many stars. Brady and Drew Brees and all these guys are getting so old. I mean, that's why like Lamar Jackson and Mahomes is from the NFL's point, is like, thank you God that we've got Lamar Jackson.
They're trying
and
to prop
Mahomes.
up these at least potential new stars.
But Mahomes is one,
and he's a bona fide star.
He's a bona fide star. Lamar Jackson's shaping up to be. He needs to win the playoffs.
Yeah,
but other than winning the playoffs, he's doing all he's supposed to do. So anyway, they're looking for stars. They're looking for the next ones, and I think he's colorful, and they want to just grab onto it.
Yeah, I get it, but it sure did.
Oh, I don't condone it.
Yeah, it more than bothered me.
Well, I saw the same thing. Even people on Twitter were talking about it. I'm like, we won the game, but ESPN's focused on Minshew. NFL Network was focusing on Minshew. Like, we won the game.
Yeah. It literally I went from NFL Network, every channel I looked looking for Tennessee highlights. Just say something, and every one of them, it was almost 100% about the Jags and Minshew, and then again at the very last second, the Titans, like begrudgingly, the Titans held on to the win. And you're like, oh, come on.
I think there's also a factor with the Titans themselves. The Titans don't really have any colorful characters. Tannehill, when you see interviews, just toes the line. We're going to do our best.
Sure.
Team first. Derrick Henry, as much a big a beast he is very a team first guy. He's not banging his chest. He's all about as long as we win. So, and they've built that kind of team on purpose. I mean, they're emulating the Patriots, mold, where just other than Brady and Belichick, it was pretty much just a bunch of worker bees in a way.
And I like that they've kind of taken on the Vrabel personality.
Yeah. A very workman-like approach.
Yeah.
So there's not that. They don't have a Keyshawn Johnson or a Odell Beckham or something like that that's going to be really mouthy and get a lot of attention and ego-driven and stuff. So, I mean, I'm not saying they should change it for publicity. I mean, as long as you win, who gives a crap what the ESPN covers? But we just haven't had that kind of a brash personality in a long time.
Yeah.
Long time. Well, even Chris Johnson in his heyday was quiet and didn't talk much. We just never had that. Eddie George might have been one of the most braggadocious players we ever had.
And compared to him to others, he's still not. He's still not a braggadocious.
He's not even a quarter as braggadocious as a Odell Beckham or Antonio Brown, or his name, Antonio Brown. Or he's just not.
Yeah.
We just don't have those type of guys that draw that attention.
Yeah, it just anytime you're gonna prop somebody up, sometimes it's really aggravating to do it with a team that's just not won in recent years. So it felt a little more than just them kind of going into hype. It was odd to me. But I think your explanation, I think, is exactly what was going on. I think they're obviously looking for trying to prop up potential future stars for the league because the old guard is getting close to being totally gone, and you have the new guard in Mahomes and Lamar Jackson, top of the class. So I totally get that, and that's fine. You just they kind of need to win before you get there. You know what I'm saying?
Oh no. Well, it goes back. You've made the comment about movie stars. I mean, you used to always like Janine Garofalo was always your example of like she got all his attention, but she hadn't been anything like to warrant it. And like when she first hit in the '90s, it was like Janine Garofalo. She did all this stuff. You're like she'd starred in like
America's new darling, and you're like, what?
Who is she? Where did she come from? Why?
Like, what? Yeah, I was like, was there a ballot that went around and I didn't get mine? I didn't get to vote on this.
Yeah. And she didn't like.
She's a new America's sweetheart.
Yeah, she wasn't in some movie that she had like this breakthrough role. Like, oh, I'm gonna be a star. I mean, she didn't have that.
Yeah.
Movie that did that, so it was like I don't know what she is or where she came from, but y'all sure are pushing her now. So it's like she was a hell of an agent. But I'm like,
and I remember thinking when she was in that movie, the Truth About Cats and Dogs.
Yeah,
I remember thinking Uma Thurman needs to fire her agent because Uma Thurman, it was like her like career was like farther along. She should have been like the star of the movie. Should have been totally reversed, right?
Never saw that movie, by the way.
Well, it was a typical kind of romantic comedy kind of thing. But anyway, and quirky. But it was. But Thurman career she'd already been in movies for at that point 7-8 years. So she was already had a natural rise going on, and so here she was, very much like co-starring behind Janine Garofalo. I was like, what?
Yeah.
Like, Thurman, you should be the star of this.
Yeah.
We know who you are. It's about time you actually get a chance to lead. Who is this chick? It was weird.
Like he's going a whole rant. I just used the example that he's going a whole like Janine Garofalo.
I really love that whole
we went somehow
moment.
We went through Gardner Minshew to Janine. Gardner Minshew is the Janine Garofalo of the NFL, right?
He is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He is.
He is.
Gardner Minshew is the Janine Garofalo. She was kind of cute when she first came out. That's about all I gave her.
Well, then she like opened her mouth and just this one negative thing after another.
She's not very good. I don't think she's a very good person, apparently.
It's like, are you always this kind of negative?
Very negative.
Anyway.
Sad sacky. Whatever type.
Yeah, that shit gets old, Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway, back to football. Well, anyway, I think that the Titans are going to be the whipping boy over this COVID thing for a little while. I know Ben Roethlisberger ran his big dumb trap about it a little bit. Well, that's the play. That's just the way it breaks now. It's not our job. Yeah, okay, well. Shoes on the other foot. It's not fair. It's not fair. We should be up right with the Steelers. We should be given a chance. I mean, so Ben can shove that. Big Ben can shove that right where the sun don't shine.
Yeah. Well, he's got, 2 Super Bowl rings. He's going to the Hall of Fame, Like we have nothing. We were first to COVID. I mean, that's our claim to fame.
I even did a Facebook post. I did a Facebook post. I said, well, we've had a player die in the middle of the season, we had a player commit suicide rather in the middle of the season. We had our biggest star legend murdered in retirement. We've had coaches punch each other on the sidelines. We moved states and had a stupid name for 2 years. And so it's just fitting. When we were the first to get COVID, I'm like, that makes sense. That's just fitting.
They played at least 2 years in the wrong city because it was part of that whole weird transition.
Yeah, it's like, okay, well, it just makes sense that we're the ones that makes sense that we get COVID. That's just check that box. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. I tell you what, my balls got kicked hard this week. Really, they're really sore.
Well, let's end on this note. I want to end on this question. I don't want to end on the ball kicking. I want to end on a different note.
Why not? Okay, go ahead.
Speaking of balls getting kicked, I would like to do this routinely throughout the year. So as we do these shows throughout the football season, I want to come back to this question when we do a football show.
All right.
Do you pay Dak? I'm interested to see how the answer changes throughout the year.
Okay.
I think we asked this question a few weeks ago. I think the jury was out. Might have been the answer then. I can't remember exactly. But here we are. We're 4 games in the year. You got a quarter of the games in. Do you pay Dak?
Right now, no. And I'll tell you why. The issues are still the same. Doesn't matter that if it's 250 yards or 450 yards. This is a guy who does not play well in the first quarter, gets behind, and then has to finally once he gets warmed up, shows up in the second quarter or third quarter, ends up putting a lot of big stats up that are misleading, making you think, well, his stats show he's elite. If he had showed up to play and was ready to play at kickoff like elite players do, we wouldn't have been behind in all 4 of these games. So he's absolutely contributing to the fact we're having to dig out of holes.
I think at this point,
that's my opinion.
I would agree with not paying at this point. I think keeping on to him is kind of like staying in a relationship. Well, they're just going to change. He'll change. He just got to get that job. And when he gets his job again, he'll get normal again. It's kind of like a bad relationship. You keep it. You're hanging on, thinking they'll change,
right?
Because you think there's this potential that they have, and you don't want to miss this potential they may have.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, in the present, they're not cutting it. So I feel like paying him isn't so much that you think he's the guy. You're just afraid that you're afraid that you might miss. Because frankly, you could have what's his name in Miami right now and get the same result. You could have what's his name, the old guy with the beard. Fitzpatrick.
Yes, thank you.
You could have Fitzpatrick now and pretty much have the same result. I mean, he was slinging it in Tampa a couple years ago when they were setting some records on passing yardage. So, yeah, Fitzpatrick could sling it.
Yeah.
You'll still be 1-3. Might as well just save the money.
Well, there's 12 more games in the season, so he's got 12 more games for this audition to make his case. And to me, I've always thought that the argument is like, dude, you shouldn't be. You're not applying for us to say you're elite or not elite. You should be applying that you are the franchise quarterback, solid quarterback. That's what you're looking for. Right. I can lead you and I can play well. No franchise should expect their quarterback to necessarily has to be elite, but it seems like he's trying to really prove, no, I'm really elite. And really, we don't really need that. We just need you to quit, fumbling the ball, making the turnovers, and putting us in holes, especially with a defense this bad. I've been saying it for years. Now the whole NFL knows what I've been saying. I've been saying it for years. So, But anyway, Dak, you want the money. You're going to have to start protecting the ball.
You're going to have to come down here, Cod. You're going to have to come down here.
I like how I had we kind of did an arc there. We went from balls kicked to protect the ball. It's all about the ball.
Speaking of being all about the ball, do